piece of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
What's up, film fans? Welcome to episode 274. Welcome to Scarface. And welcome to a brand new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. The world is yours, and you're listening to the Cine-Men Movie Podcast, available on wherever you listen to podcasts, but we're streaming live on Imisawa Productions YouTube channel. I am your host, Juan, and I am joined by the cast, the crew. Edward?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Zach, how about you?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
New episode, new month. December finally kicks off. Guys, not everybody go at once, but how's your week been?
It's been awesome.
Awesome, good. Good. The world has been ours this week, guys, this year. We only 4 episodes left until a new year. And I don't want anybody to think that we're taking any time off.
We don't take no time off here.
We don't take no time off. Every week, brand new episode. Wednesday, 5:30. The days may be different, but we still deliver a brand new episode as we have for the past, going on 5 years, fellas. And
we need sinking days off.
Yeah, 2024 is going to be no different. We're kicking the year off with a special film and a special presentation. Zach, you want to let everybody know what we're doing this year, starting in January for next year?
Yeah, if you listened to us this whole year of 2023, we kind of did last year 2022 we did like a Denzel kind of retrospective. We just did Denzel movies all the way through the year and did a top 5 plus 5 at the end of 2022. This year, we're going to do a Robin Williams thing. We're going to go through his movies, do the exact same thing at the end of the year, do a top 5 plus 5 Robin Williams movies. Next year is the 10th anniversary of his passing, so we thought we'd honor the late great comedian actor. I think all of us at some point have grown up with him, whether Hook or Jumanji or whatever. So it'll be kind of cool to go back and look at those movies, look at his serious work, his comedic work, and everything in between.
All 4 here today? What?
All 4 also joined by Craig. Craig, how you been doing, man?
I've been all right. Been busy.
Craig just now getting out of that Colombian refugees. So he's Scarfacing it up, getting ready to carve that fucking man like a Thanksgiving Day turkey, man. You know what I mean?
Oh my god!
I do this for fun. Man.
So, so that's what we're doing. January, we're starting the year off with Good Will Hunting, a Robin Williams movie. But yeah, guys, 4 episodes left of this 2023 year, and then we go on to the next. But let's jump into it. Later on, we're going to get ready to talk about Scarface as it celebrates 40 years this weekend. But a look back, guys, if you guys did not join us last week for Oppenheimer, actually the last 2 weeks, we talked the 2 highest grossing films of 2023. We talked Barbie 2 weeks ago, and then last week we talked Oppenheimer. So go back and listen to those episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. If you feel like watching us, you can always watch us on Imisawa Productions right here on this YouTube channel. Or you can go back and watch us on Facebook Live. Ed, how can they get a hold of us on the social media?
It's pretty easy, but we'll go ahead and put that down right here for you anyways. We got that Facebook.com/the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. That is the CINEMEN Movie Podcast, like it's always been. The Instagram is the Cine-Men Movie Podcast, spelled the same way, of course. On the X, CINEMEN405, and email at cinnamon921@gmail.com. That is CINEMEN921@gmail.com. Let us know what you want. Let us know some of your thoughts, man. Send it in. We love it.
So, guys, let's get ready to dig into today's episode. But first, before we do that, let's get into some recent watches. It's been a while since we all four have, had a conversation together. So, Ed, let's start with you. Have you been checking anything out recently that you want to recommend or talk to us about?
Well, kind of watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Blood and Whores? Is that what episode? Oh, Honey.
I was gonna say Blood and Horror, but Honey. Yeah. It's a C-rated movie for sure, man. It's cheesy.
Is that being
drippy.
generous? C?
I'd say it's all right. Like,
Did you
it's nothing.
Did you watch it on the Peacock?
Yes, I did. I did check it on the cock.
Our good old buddies at Friday the 14th didn't talk you into it, did they? Because that's what they talked about last week.
I did not know they were doing it, but funny enough, I actually, looked on Facebook and popped right up. I was like, oh, huh. After that, I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show 23 lately, so there's that. But one that I did start just last night was the Squid Game. I forget the X of it, but the challenge, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that the reality show?
Yes. Part of it seems a little set up in some ways, honestly. It's like the Squid Games meets Big Brother in a way, and they mold together. It's not bad, but...
So there's a lot of fucking.
So far that they've shown or talked about, no, but there is a lot of, we need an alliance, or this person, that person, and I'm going to lie to them, do the same. It's got a lot of elements from the show. Like, they play the same games and stuff like that over it. Same
cheesy.
Choices. It is. I agree. It's not bad. It's interesting because, you kind of start rooting for some people, and then some people that you're like, yeah, forget that guy. There was actually a guy who played for Clemson in it from 2020 is when he left because he had a lot of, I guess, knee injuries. So I guess it was filmed in 2020 because he said that he left school to come and play the game, which they are playing for $4,560,000. So that's the main things I've been doing this week as far as media and all that good stuff go.
Nice. Zach, what about you? Have anything you want to recommend, or have you been on the binge of anything? How's Godzilla, the Monarch show, been doing to you?
Monarch's been pretty good. It's just weird how Godzilla can work on a small screen on a television show. Honestly, most of it's the acting and the characters. That it's been a really great show so far.
Did you go see -1?
Yeah, I was about to get in that here in a minute. Checked out Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King for next week's episode. Sound of Freedom here in a couple weeks, and just watching some Christmas movies to get ready for our top 5 plus 5, and then going into, like you said, Johnny, Godzilla -1. Easily, arguably, probably the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. It's fantastic.
Did you see the trailer?
Oh, Godzilla times Kong, New Empire. Yeah. It looks cool. Looks really cool.
Godzilla Millennium.
Godzilla times Kong. So wait a minute, they're putting math into the movie? I don't know.
They're putting math in the movie. Yes.
I mean, there's a few extra things in there, little guys, and all.
But Godzilla -1, I highly recommend it. Go see it on the biggest screen. It's interesting. You go in wanting just Godzilla chaos, which the visuals, the destruction, everything is incredible. You walk out caring for the humans. It's actually a very, very good human story. It's actually it takes place like right after the bombing, the atomic bombs, and like Japan rebuilding and everything. It's it's a sequel to Oppenheimer essentially.
We just talked about that.
But yeah, go check out Godzilla -1. So,
I'll rapid fire through mine real quick. I checked out Blue Steel from 1990 with Jamie Lee Curtis. Catherine Bigelow
Isn't that
directed.
isn't that the Ben Stiller look?
Blue Steel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zoolander?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Gone right over our heads for a second.
I watched The Machine, starring Burt Kreischer. Super funny.
Yep.
The
Mark
machine.
Mark Hamill's in it. That's a funny movie. I recommend it. Watched Fall. It came out in 2022.
Yeah.
Never sat down to watch it. I heard a lot about it, and it's one of those movies that even if you're watching it at home, you're on the edge of your seat. If you hate heights, you're just like biting your nails the entire time. I recommend that. You Hurt My Feelings, the latest from A24, is a pretty fun movie. The Santa Claus, and then Scarface for today. So if I had to recommend anything, honestly, The Machine is easy to access. It's on Netflix.
What is
And
that
then
movie even
obviously
about?
The Machine.
Yeah.
So in one of his
So,
comedy skits, he has a Russian story. You know,
He took Russian in college
yeah,
Oh.
and the
for
movie
like
is
5 years.
the movie's pretty much based off of one of his comedy skits that he's told people numerous times.
Okay.
But it's funny. If you want to laugh, you need to laugh. I'd recommend it. I don't think Fall is streaming on anything. Of course, the Santa Claus is on Disney Plus. And then go check out Scarface. This is also streaming on Netflix. So, Craig, what about you? You check anything out this week that you want to recommend? Any gaming?
yeah, I've checked out Elf, checked out The Grinch with Jim Carrey. Just kind of staples that we tend to watch during the holiday season.
True.
I started the first episode of the Godzilla TV series and then just never fell back into it. Not because it was bad or anything. Just I always tend to forget about the shows on Apple TV.
Yeah.
But been binging Pokemon, man. Started with the first season, watched Pokemon the movie, Pokemon 2000. And I've been playing heavy into Sword Shield, Scarlet Violet, and Legends of Arceus. So, whole lot of Pokemon going on. And watched Scarface, and I watched The Marvels a couple weeks ago.
What'd you think?
I thought it was a fun time for the movie. I don't think it was a great Marvel movie, but I had fun with it.
It wasn't as bad as everyone says it was it?
No, and I wanted to hate it. And the funny thing about that movie is Kamala Khan, which I didn't necessarily like the TV show. Mm-hmm. She was the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with her character. She was well written. The chemistry with her and Brie Larson was good, but she was the best part of the movie in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but that's pretty much it for me.
All right, guys, we are digging into Scarface. Currently, IMDb has it at 8.3. Rotten Tomatoes is at 79%. The Metascore is at 65%, while Edward and the Google users like it at 91%. The budget was $30 million. It grossed a little over $66 million at the box office, with a December 9th, 1983 release date. In 1980, Miami, a determined Cuban immigrant takes over a drug cartel and succumbs to greed. Starring Al Pacino, Michelle Pfeiffer, Stephen Bauer, Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni, Robert Loggia, F. Murray Abraham. Written by Oliver Stone, directed by Brian De Palma. Guys, let's get into it. It turns 40 in just 3 days. We'll start with you, Ed. Do you remember the first time that you watched this? What was it like then, and what was it like now with the recent watch for the episode?
First time I ever watched, it had to be like between 16, 18 years ago. So I don't know, 14, 15, somewhere around there. I didn't understand a lot of it. I was cool. I knew about a lot, but I didn't really. I don't know. I didn't see the classic side of it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was good, but there's that. But now, growing and all that good stuff. This movie is without a doubt one of the classics. This is a very, very, very well done movie, in my opinion. So,
And let's not forget, this is a remake from the 1932 version of Scarface, where Paul Muni played the great Tony in that film. Zach, what about you? You remember the first time you watched it, and what was it like? In a few short words, revisiting it for the podcast.
So, this is a movie that, for a long time, I just kind of, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say, I had no interest in seeing. It, I guess I just ignored it, which I guess is the same thing. I actually first time saw it was back in 2016, so about 7 years ago. And when you said we were going to do this episode, the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, I get it. I get what people like this movie, whatever. And I don't know, I guess it's just over the years, I guess just maybe my opinion of it has just faltered a little bit. But when you said we were going to do this, how you're dreading Return of the King next week. I was dreading this. I was like, I waited to the last possible moment to watch this. And I'll just go ahead and just jump to the gun. I mean, I think this is a good movie. I don't think this is a great movie. I have I have qualms about it. Which we'll talk about. But I get at the end of the day, I don't really understand why people love this movie so much. So
before we touch your qualms, Craig, what about you? Do you remember the first time you watched it, and what was it like revisiting it for the episode?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, it's not necessarily a movie I gravitated to. As I got older, I'd heard about it. A lot of people talked about it. Finally watched it, probably senior year in high school or so. Watched it, thought it was a great movie, bought it, have it on Blu-ray, I believe. Watched it a couple times between then and now, and then watched it for this showing, which I think it's been probably, like Zach, 5 or 6 years since I've watched it. I thought I was going to really enjoy it. I watched it. I didn't have issues watching it, but at the same time, I was like, this is not as great as I thought it was. So,
Fair
I'll
enough.
leave it there.
And let's dig into it. I don't know. I always gravitate towards the sleazy gangster throwback films, whether it's something like Godfather, Untouchables, Carlito's Way. Even if it's a bad gangster movie, I was talking to somebody about this earlier. Like, even if it's a bad reviewed.
So you like the Shia LaBeouf movie?
The Tax Collector, yeah.
You know what? I mean, I didn't hate it. I thought Shia LaBeouf was the best part of it. Even something like Al Capone with Tom Hardy, I gravitated towards it, and we'll talk about it in here in just a bit. But I've always gravitated and liked Scarface, and I kind of was with you guys. I was like, man, what if I don't like it this time around? Because it has been, I think this 35th anniversary copy came out like 5 years ago, and I think I watched it then, and I haven't picked it up since. So. But let's dig into it. And what this movie almost had a hard time getting made. I think Brian De Palma went back and forth with the studio execs and with the rating company, and they were going to X-rate it, and they sent it back 3 times, denying him, and boom, he was like, you know what, let's get this whole thing just rated, and he went with the version that he wanted, and it got rated. It's an R rating. Some of the scenes are even hysterical almost. But right around 1980, when the drug war was going on, this movie got made and got put out. So what do you guys think about the opening of the refugees, and kind of like the documentary opening, and then you get to see Tony and the cop ask him, how do you get a scar like that, man?
Yeah, I mean, it just like you said, it starts out real documentary-like, almost like they were really trying to base it to make it feel like it was actual events that happened. Which, I mean, for the most part, they happened, but not necessarily Tony Montana. But I feel like the opening part of the movie is different than the rest of the movie. I feel like right around when they kill Renbenga, the movie kind of flips, and it turns from the feeling that it has at the beginning to the actual movie itself.
Yeah, because basically he assassinates someone to get green card, come in, and kind of goes into the drug trade pretty heavily.
So after the stabbing and they meet Omar and they get the first job, that first job scene in the motel is, even to this day, I kind of forgot about that scene, but I rewatched it. I rewatched it twice, getting ready for today, and I'm like, man, even in a back-to-back viewing of it, I still kind of like
Cringed.
not cringe, but only like also just edge of your seat, like, man, the chainsaw. Because when they whip out the chainsaw, you're like, this is kind of a little comedical almost. Are they really going to use this thing?
Yeah.
But it picks up right away, stating that the guys that you're about to get in business with are serious. And this
Yeah.
is also where you kind of meet, you kind of get the feeling of Omar can't be trusted in this scene right off the bat.
Right,
Yeah.
because he's like, oh, we don't want to do the lightweight stuff. We, put us to work and let us do the big dog stuff. And they mentioned the Colombians, and right off the bat, he's like, all right, if you can get through the Colombians, and we can do some stuff. But it was almost like nobody wanted to do that job because they knew it was a death trap.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the funny thing is like getting prepared for this movie, like the one thing I remember from this is, I remember a chainsaw, but I remember like what to extent. So when we get to the drug deal gone bad, that, like you said, Johnny, it's very, very intense. It's just very in your face. This is this type of line of work. And I like how right off the bat, we just start losing people, whether it be, his friend or, whoever. They're minute characters, but at the end of the day, it really shapes who
It stacks
Tony,
up.
yeah, who it shapes Tony Montana as a person.
Zach, I wanted to bring this up to you because I know you're a big Spielberg fan. Watching the documentary for this, did you know Spielberg was on set for a few days and actually filmed a few scenes?
Yeah, most notably the "Say Hello to My Little Friend" scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hysterical. I was gonna ask you watched the De Palma documentary like a long time ago. Was it?
Yeah.
Did they have like a big part about Scarface in that?
Oh man, Scarface was almost like his not his coming out party because obviously he had made so many movies before that,
Right.
but it was his staple of like, you know, this is one of those movies that told me can't be done. It wasn't going to make any money, and it wasn't going to be remembered. Nobody wanted to go see it, but it ended up being the complete opposite.
Yeah.
De Palma's so vision. His vision is just so like uh common, and I don't think it can be matched as far as what he wants in his movie. He's not going to be told no.
Yeah, that's true. And I forget that he, talk about De Palma a little bit. I forgot that he did the first Mission Impossible. That just slips my mind.
Even going back to like the movie, like the movie Blowout with John Travolta, how risque that movie was back in like the 70s, and now you're going all the way to 83 with Scarface. Is like, you
Well,
should have
and
known that this movie was going to be. It was going to be dark. He was going to throw whatever he wanted in it. And a lot of people give De Palma credit for the one-liners in this movie when, in all honesty, Oliver Stone wrote it. So
yeah,
all the dialogue you hear in this movie is all from Oliver Stone. And the dialogue in this movie is so, I'm not wanting to say like meta, but it's just like you can't imagine the movie now without these one-liners,
yeah.
you know.
Well, and like
Honestly.
it's interesting, that group of filmmakers that came after the golden age of Hollywood: Spielberg, De Palma, Lucas, Coppola. He, like you said, Johnny, he's out of all of those guys, he's probably the darkest filmmaker out of all of them. Like if you just look at his filmography. So
Do you think De Palma, and I know we're kind of getting off subject of just the movie, but I feel like De Palma is probably the one out of all those directors you named that probably, and maybe Oliver Stone, that they both in this movie have probably the most biggest balls as far as like what they want to write in the movie and what they don't want left out in the movie. Like they have no issue telling the ratings program to fuck it.
Eat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, like, you really, I think out of all those guys, De Palma's the one that's, I would say people don't take him seriously because obviously, obviously Scarface out of all his films is probably the most recognizable. But like even something like later in his career with like the Black Dahlia, that's one that a lot of people just put over as being terrible. But that's a very dark neo crime thriller that really works, honestly. So I think, yeah, I mean, you know what you're getting into. Like Tarantino, you know what you're getting with a De Palma movie. So it's just if it you you put in Scarface and you're just like, oh my god, this is so excessive, then clearly you haven't seen any of his movies.
Would you guys think of the one-liners? Were they too much for you? Did you giggle at some of them?
They're classics. I mean, honestly, that games have used it, TV shows use it, celebrities use it here and there, or have used it. Songs have used it. So I mean,
I got my
to me
word
they're
on my balls
classics.
when I don't break them for nobody. Speaking of game, I'm glad you brought that up. What did you guys? I feel like without this film, you still had heavy gangster movies back in the day, but without this movie, I think this was probably one of the biggest movies influenced by Grand Theft Auto. I don't know if you have Grand Theft Auto without this movie. I don't think you have a lot of video games like that without this movie. What about this?
They also
What about the Scarface
Rockstar
game?
also made Rockstar made the Scarface.
Anybody play it?
I did. Yep.
I have not.
It's interesting video game because the video game picks up right after the movie as if he survived. So it's almost like a sequel if you play the video game or if you want to go check out some videos online. The video game picks up as if he survived. So very, very interesting.
So it's just like an alternate, like, what if he survives? Like, what would he have done next or whatever?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
What about meeting Frank, played by the great Robert Loggia? What do you guys think of Frank in this movie? Frank is obviously the old school veteran. He's got his own. He is the crime boss in the movie, and you can tell right off the bat. Tony's breaking his back for him, so he trusts Tony, and it's just a matter of time until Tony overtakes what Frank has built.
Very true.
What I like about that character is that he really does set the grounds for what's going to happen later in the film. He says, watch your competition's money, and most importantly, don't get hooked on your own product.
Don't get greedy.
What happens to Tony by the end of the film?
He's pushing his own and other people's faces into cocaine and all that. Cocaina.
You get a young Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie.
Very young. I think she was like 18 when she shot this.
She's also lost a lot of weight for this movie. I think she said she started like 90 pounds and tried to lose more weight as the filming gone on. So,
wow.
Stephen Bauer plays Manny. What'd you guys think of Manny, who is actually the only real Colombian in this movie? Hung out with Al Pacino for 3 months straight and taught him everything he needs to know about the accent.
I thought he is a good yin and yang to the character, the opposite of. I will say, like, I didn't realize on that, like, especially from the first watch, like how much of a hothead Tony is. Just like you look at him, you say something, he's just gonna go off on you.
The moment from when he started doing the dishes and they were in the sandwich shop.
Yeah. But Manny's very much the complete opposite. Hey, let's cool down. Let's think about this. He's the
morality
of Tony that really, unfortunately, I'm curious if you guys think. I don't know how I feel. It makes sense what happens to him ultimately with his character, but at the same time, it's just like I kind of thought that he would get away, honestly.
Tony,
Manny, by the end of the film, like maybe he would just come to his senses and said, "I can't be with you, Tony," and just leave. So.
I feel like it's, I kind of agree. It's his loyalty to Tony that eventually gets him in the long run.
Well, that and his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, you meet the mom, you meet the sister. What'd you guys think of the I'm not wanting to say gross. I don't want to use that word, but the over uh, protectiveness of Tony and his sister Gina, played by Mary
See,
Elizabeth.
I think out of everything in this movie, that's the family drama of his mother knowing just what he is, and just what he know. Obviously, what she knows he's going to become. That was the most powerful stuff of the movie. Even though he's trying to do good, he's trying to bring them money. He looks after Gina, and everything in between. It's not good enough. It's never going to be a good enough. You could freaking rule the world as Tony wants to do. His mother doesn't care. He knows what is there a line in the movie that says like you become what your father is or something like that? I
I
feel
don't
like
think
there
it ever.
is.
I don't. I think she accuses him of doing what he might have done, but
Right.
I don't think the father is really brought up in this.
No. I know he's not in the movie, but I just thought like maybe, you're your father's son or whatever, and that to me was like the most powerful part of the movie.
Zach, you said you kind of dreaded going into this after the initial watch. What kind of and all the dust has settled. What kind of feelings now do you have towards just like maybe some of the bases of the movie? Were there any parts for you, Zach, that like kind of dragged? And then Ed, if you want to answer after, you can.
You know what? I gotta say,
Or did it kind of surprise you?
I was dreading this watch because initially, before I did the rewatch, I just didn't think it was a very good movie. I think this movie is like completely
Drawn out,
it.
overrated.
It's overrated. I don't and Ed, if Ed or Johnny, you have an answer. If you have an answer, what your opinion is, I just want to hear it. Why do you think this movie is so beloved? At the end of the day, is it just like the notion of just taking world the way you want it?
I think this movie, and if you want me to go, I'll go first if that's fine. I think this movie is so at least loved for the simple fact of it's the American dream. It's everybody. It's what everybody wants to do, but nobody has. Like Tony says in the movie, "I'm what everybody wants to be, but you guys don't have the fucking balls to do it, or nobody has the guts to take over, or he tells the truth and people don't like it." I think it's just his personality and the way he's hungry about it. The way he just goes after it. I think that's what makes this film so popular. And there wasn't back in the day. There wasn't an episode of MTV Cribs that you didn't see where somebody didn't have something in their house due to Scarface.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted something to do with this movie, and I think it's just it's the go getter mentality of I want to be my own boss. I don't want to break my back as a dishwasher, like he says in the movie. Who's all three of us right here probably watching the movie and is thinking at the time where he's getting the money out of the van and going into the bank. One of us would be lying if we said, "Man, I want that right now." Doesn't
Well,
matter. Doesn't matter how he came about it. We want it.
and I think one of the coolest symbolism images of the film is at the beginning where they are, him and Manny are like in the cook truck or the food truck, and they're across the street from Little Havana, the club. It's almost like the dual reality of their situation of they want the real Little Havana so bad, but they're stuck in like this alternate fake version of it, essentially.
I think Johnny or Juan, you are very, very, very on point for that matter. I mean, honestly, like I wouldn't want to go this route because don't get me wrong, we
Right.
kind of seen how it goes in a lot of cases. But as far as like the American dream, like to do your own business, to own your own house and your own cars, and nobody can practically tell you what to do. That is the American dream right there, man. I mean, and it I think a lot of it just slips out of people's hands. But I mean, at the same time, like if you ask the same question about why is GTA so popular, it deals with a lot of the same stuff. Why is Call of Duty so popular? Doesn't deal with a lot of the drugs and stuff like that, but it does deal with going and doing a military thing. But a lot of people who play it don't do anything military wise. people's imagination.
And I love that this movie is so detailed because they keep reminding you that Tony came from nothing. Even in the bus on the way to Miami, he asked Manny, he's like, "What'd you tell him?" He's like, "I told you what you wanted me to tell him. I told him I was in a sanitizer." And he's like, "No, you fucking dummy. You were in a sanitarium." So it's just stuff like that. The detail to the movie, even to the scene where, who is it? Omar and Tony get they get the job settled pretty much with is it Salazar? Sosa.
Yes. Yeah.
Sosa.
Sosa. Yeah. Yeah.
So Tony and Omar is sitting there with Sosa and they're getting ready to get the deal, and Omar's telling him like, no, shut up, you don't know nothing. When at the end of the day, Omar's the undercover who's getting ready to getting ready to get hung. But the detail in this scene that I want to dish out is Tony came from so much of nothing that he's drinking and eating the lemon water that is meant to clean your hands in the movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't know, he looks at it as like a refreshing snack, but it's something that you're supposed to be using to clean your hands.
Right.
The detailedness of this movie is just something I haven't, I wanted to just touch on today because it's just so fascinating that amount of detail is put into this movie. And the same thing that Sosa falls in love with Tony for is the exact same thing that Frank falls in love with Tony for. Is he's not gonna lie to you. He's gonna break his back for you, but he's gonna tell you how it is.
But I feel like Frank. But I think that's the fall of Frank, is that he wants to be that so bad that he knows it. I hate to use this metaphor, but it's just like we know that in Star Wars, Anakin becomes stronger than Palpatine and Obi-Wan and all that. Like at the end of the day, Frank knows that Tony's going to become more powerful than him at some point. And I think that's what scares him. That's why we get the assassination attempt on him in the club.
He also gets the eyes. He tells Manny it's the eyes. He can tell that Frank is weak. He can tell that Frank is jealous. He can tell that Frank wants to be Tony, but Tony also wants to be Frank as far as the power and the greed. But Frank tells Tony, if you want to last in this business long enough, you can't be greedy.
Yeah, can't get hooked on your product. Yeah.
So. You talk about the assassination scene. What do you guys think? A little bit before that, he sees Gina in the club getting groped by one of the other greasers, and Tony follows him to the bathroom. After the bathroom scene is where the assassination takes hit on Tony.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot that there was they try to kill him off early in the movie, but fails obviously. And I like how it goes back to Frank. I like Al Pacino's performance in that scene. He's very calm. He's not his hot-headed self. It's just like, you know what? I'm going to play the cards right, and you're going to tell me exactly what happened. And that is a really great scene acting wise. And just by the end of it, Robert Loggia is literally on his knees begging for life, and it's just so. That is what you want to see in your character, especially a very anti-hero type character that you really shouldn't root for, but you do because obviously. So, what do you think about it, Ed?
It's kind of one of those things to where the power starts. I don't know if maybe going to his head is the right word or not, but the power starts kind of making him do a lot of different things that maybe he wouldn't have done earlier, but very protective over family members, very protective over, what he's trying to build, different things like that. So, it's kind of a thing. Like if you had a business, legal or illegal, whatever, how would you treat it? How would you, if you were doing a hell of a lot better in life, like if you won the lottery, how would you treat family members? How would you treat friends? How would you treat people around you? Mm-hmm. Everybody says, oh, it's a certain way. No, I wouldn't. Money wouldn't change me. But at the same time,
it would.
Is that reality? Or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of in the same, in a way, the same exact thing, in this case, money and power changed him a lot.
Well, and I also think that it also like it makes him paranoid, especially after the assassination attempt. And plus, he's doing maybe a little bit too much coke. But
but in the same thing with that paranoia, and the same thing, you got to go back to what Juan just said, like not even 4 minutes ago. He knew Frank was weak. He knew that, I can take that over if I try hard enough. I can take it over, and I know I can. You look in his eyes, he's not the guy. I'm the guy.
But there's also the montage after Frank and Bernstein, which is the crooked cop that says, "Hey, you want protection? You're going to pay me this so many times a month or whatever." Him and what's Michelle Pfeiffer's character's name? Olivia. They get married. They move into this like huge mansion with all types of security cameras all over the place. I feel like wasn't there like bars on the door, on the windows, and everything?
Yeah,
just so much. I always gotta keep looking behind me. That I gotta trust this guy or that guy, or you need to be with me while I'm in the jacuzzi tub in the middle of the house.
Because once he started building that empire, he knew he couldn't slip up. He couldn't be off guard. He had to be 24/7, 365, 1,000% on guard. And I mean, they're wrong. Just because she's stupid enough to get messed up does not mean I'm stupid enough to get messed up. Is what he thought. So
I gotta point out, is a great scene, by the way, when he's in the tub and she's off doing her thing and Manny's right there. Just the dialogue in between the two is just so funny. When she says something, he's like, he looks around like he didn't hear it. Like, where's the noise coming from? Who's saying this shit? I think it's just it's funny. This movie didn't get nominated for any big awards. The biggest thing it got nominated for was a score at the Golden Globes, Best Supporting Actor, and then Brian De Palma got nominated a Razzie for Worst Director of the Year.
I mean, back in 1983 when it was originally released, I mean, it was it was not at all received the way it was now. I mean, initial critical reception was negative due to the excessive violence, profanity, and graphic drug use, and many Cubans in Miami really hindered the fact and the idea of the portrayal of Cubans in this movie. But obviously since then, I think if we were to redo the Oscars of that year, I'm pretty sure at least get nominated for Best Picture and Al Pacino and director and everything. Speaking of which, I want to talk about Pacino's performance a little bit. I feel like, and if I'm wrong, you guys can tell me. I mean, truthfully, I feel like Pacino is a little over the top in this film. And maybe that's just the way the character's written, just all the excessiveness of this world and just the way he is. I don't know. What do you guys think? It doesn't bother me at all. I know that's just the character and just how he portrayed it. But to me on this rewatch, it was just kind of like, okay, we could maybe draw back a little bit.
So you think he's too loudmouth and obnoxious?
Not so much that. It's just his performance a little bit. It's just kind of like
over the top.
Yeah.
I think for somebody who is not Colombian, I think it is a little over the top. But like you said, I think you needed somebody who was going to be a hot-headed, loudmouth, take no shits given kind of guy. So I think you can look at it both ways. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, whenever you go ahead and kind of go down to it,
but I think that's what makes the character Tony Montana. Like, that's what makes this movie Scarface. If the actor,
and you also have to realize that Al Pacino was in The Godfather about 10 years before this. So, if you're going to play another gangster, you have to do something completely different. So that's Michael Corleone is much more saying he's much more calculated. You don't really know what he's thinking.
But
Well,
when Michael got heated, though, you saw
he
a
does the
little
same
bit of
thing.
you saw a little Tony
Yeah.
Montana. If you go back and watch both movies,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
he just seemed more put together to where Tony just seems more driven, if that makes sense.
that's a good point. Tony is hungry at the beginning of the movie, and he's willing to do and kill and do whatever it takes to get where he wants to be.
Because he knows that low life. He knows that I'm in the gutters. I'm in the trench. I want to get to the penthouse.
Well, on the opposite side, on the opposite side of the coin, Michael Corleone, it's handed down to him. He doesn't want it initially, but he's the prodigal son that's got to take the business over.
It's like having the king that was born versus the king that pulled out the sword from the stone.
Oh, is this a preview? Is this a preview for next week's episode?
I mean, just say, well, I mean, honestly, kind of, okay, you've got one that doesn't want to be, but it's his birthright. He's supposed to be the king of men. He doesn't want it, but he's a damn good leader. He's a damn good fighter. And then you got the other who's basically fighting so hard for it, but eventually
that's what kills him.
Exactly.
When Tony's getting ready, or he thinks that he's going to prison, and you get the bank issues, the bank dealer comes to Tony, and you have that 15 to 20 minute window of, the tax invasion kind of stuff. Even then, are you guys twiddling your fingers, or is it still keeping you intrigued in that time frame?
It's keeping me intrigued because it's just, as a character piece and as a viewer, you want to know how's he going to get out of this situation, especially since he's dealing with the feds.
Yeah,
it's almost kind of like the original Walter White Breaking Bad situation, where it's just like, okay, so like he's in like the worst possible cornered in 4 boxes type situation. How's he going to get out of this? And that leads into the political activist assassination attempt, which that's his downfall, but it also shows you he's not there is a line he's not willing to cross. He's not willing to kill women. He's not willing to kill kids. And when you see them both get into that car, you're just like, okay, so is he still, just to save his own ass, is he still going to pull the trigger? And he doesn't, and that arguably is the beginning of the end for him.
Yeah, that's why you don't get into politics and you don't get into religion either.
So that's
sponsored by Ed 2024.
And Sosa told him earlier in the film, don't fuck me, Tony, don't fuck me. And I mean, when you're working for the man, when Sosa's the boss, unfortunately, if you may not agree with what he wants you to do, but I mean, if he's putting bread on the table,
keep the socks on, no looking in the eyes.
But that's the thing. I feel like there's a part of me that's just like, if
Ed's got smelly socks too.
I feel like there was, Tony tried to explain, look, his daughters and wife was in the car. That's a line we don't cross. But like you said, Johnny, Sosa says, do it. You do it, no matter what the casualties are.
Would you take out the whole entire thing, the whole generation, both generations?
The dining scene with Manny and Michelle Pfeiffer's that's the last time you see her in the movie. Again, more detailing. Writing when it comes to Tony explaining to Mary, like, she don't even have a toxic free womb for him to fucking put a kid in there. He wouldn't even trust a womb with a kid. Some harsh stuff. What do you guys think of some of that dialogue?
When he says that she's just an infertile junkie, the look on Michelle Pfeiffer's face is just like, damn, that is like the lowest of blows you could possibly tell someone. And I like how I'm surprised Michelle Pfeiffer didn't get more praise for this, because that scene, she's excellent in that scene, because you just you're kind of like with her on this. It's like, please punch him in the face, do it, please. I don't care if people are around or not.
Because that's kind of the lowest of the low for an insult to a female is that's pretty harsh. I mean, honestly,
the inability to have kids, yeah,
that's a pretty harsh one. I mean, honestly, that's.
But in not really in Tony's defense, she knew what she was getting into, because he wanted somebody to build that empire with. He wanted kids. He wanted all that stuff.
But it doesn't help in every other scene she's doing blow. So it's just like, you kind of get what he's saying.
Yeah, you can't even wake up to fuck me, you know.
Don't get high on your own supply. That's
how many Tony Montana impersonations have we done in this episode?
Hey, I'm surprised I'm not doing the whole movie in Tony's voice. I'll bury those goddamn cockroaches. I'm surprised, and I know this movie wasn't loved by many when it came out, but like Michelle Pfeiffer's performance, Tony's performance. If I had to pick one Tony performance that I think could have got him the nod, it was that scene where he's leaving the diner and he's explaining to everybody why you hate me, and there's never going to be another bad guy who did it quite like me.
So it's got to be the bad guy. I'm here to be blamed, basically. Like,
I thought it was like after he kills his best friend, his like second in command, kind of the realization of like, maybe I did go too far, and Gina did love him, and he's just silent all the way back to his office, and it's just like,
because he protected his business, but he fucked over his family.
But at the end of the day, like he realizes, what have I become? We set out to do something, and now I'm just like this cocaine addict, crazy dude now.
Because he thought he was.
Let's look at it this way: if he wasn't high, and if he wasn't on as much blow as he was at the end of the movie, a fantasy book, do you think he would have survived, or do you think ultimately his death was set in stone, or do you think he would have just prolonged it?
It depends. There's a few things that I think set it up. There was a few things that could have prevented it, or maybe it would have gone in a different way. Eventually.
I think at the end of the day, when you tell a story like this, where the ultimate goal for our characters have just so much excess that I think you have to kill Tony by the end of the film, because it's just his dream, his ambition, like I said, his excessive need of wanting everything. That's what gets him killed at the end of the day.
Essentially.
I think maybe if he wasn't high, I don't think he would have killed Manny.
No. Did you like the Terminator looking dude ultimately takes him out by the end of the movie?
Oh yeah. That's Juan-Claude Van Damme.
Huh?
And there it is, folks. Tune in next week.
So he kills Manny off. Gina ultimately, dies as well. In all these gangster movies that we've talked about, which technically we've only, I don't know how we haven't talked about it more than we have. It's always the innocent that get it, Not necessarily saying Gina's completely innocent, but
right.
Out of the three,
she gets caught. Ultimately, she gets like caught in the crosshairs. Essentially, like he's aiming for Tony, and I think he like catches it out of the corner of his eye, or hears the gunshot and jumps out of the way, and Gina takes the bullets.
What'd you guys think of her line in that movie though, where she's like, Tony, do you want to fuck me? You don't want any other guy to look at me or touch me. Here I am. Why don't you come over here? What do you think the whole storyline of the brother and sister? Obviously he's a little way overprotective, but it's creepy almost.
But I think that's the point. I think at the end of the day, the way maybe Oliver Stone wrote it, or maybe even how Al Pacino portrayed the character, is the idea of, I had to do the dirty work. I had to kill the people. I had to move the drugs. You're pure. You're innocent. I don't want you caught up in this line of work or caught up in this life. And ultimately, the poison or the cancer or whatever you want to call it, it touches everybody. And, Gina was a casualty of that, essentially.
Casualty of war.
Yep.
So right before Tony, is getting under attack, and he's sitting there with a mountain of cocaine in front of him, how many of you guys want to go build a snowman with Tony Montana?
The fact that he just buries his face in this was like, it's just like, you know what? These are your literally final minutes of life. Just go all out.
But, I thought it was going to be a little bit longer than what it was. It's literally the last 9 minutes of the movie is complete chaos.
Yeah.
And it, I looking back, looking at the movie that was, 250. I thought it was gonna be one of those movies that feels 3 hours. It does not to me. I was able to watch it twice in 3 days, and it goes by so fast for me.
And I know these are two completely different films, but I mean, it's a lot like Oppenheimer, where like the climax of the movie is like the last like 9 minutes, and it's just a lot of people, a lot of people just sitting around talking and cussing each other out, essentially.
How do you guys feel about that? We have a 3-movie span where all 3 movies are over 9 hours long together.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a girthy December, right?
So everybody wants the girthy December, you know what I'm saying?
It's a girthy winter. Winter is coming.
The end needs to be girthy.
So I mean, obviously, you get the most iconic scene, and he's probably arguably one of the, at least gangster wise, say hello to my little friend, and he goes out guns a blazing. Do you think it would have been cool to see like how audiences reacted to that when it first came out? Do you think that scene still holds up? 40 years later.
Yeah, I just watched that scene. I put it on all my social medias. That scene is just, he picks up his gun, he cocks it, he's getting ready to go out there. He knows he's getting ready to die. It's just a matter of when am I dying, And he says
go out on my own.
Yeah, he says it so loud and politely, and then boom, the chaos happens, and it's fun, If anything, if you've never seen Scarface and you're not into gangster flicks and you're not you're not into Al Pacino or drugs. It's not any of your, obviously, it's not going to be a lot of people's cup of tea. But if you're a film fan and you're a film enthusiast and you love movies, I think you have to at least watch this movie one time. I don't think you can be a movie goer and not have seen this movie. Do you guys agree?
Take another Quaalude, she'll love me in the morning. Shit.
Ed sounded like an Italian fucking Elvis right there. But yeah, I do yourself a favor. It's on Netflix. It turns 40 years old this year.
There's
in 3 days.
Yeah, there's a couple theaters. There's a couple theaters showing it for its 40th anniversary. So,
some people don't even live that long. This movie,
I know.
This movie has lived and has surpassed 40th anniversary. So I, even if it's at home on Netflix, check it out if you've never seen it. Before we go on to favorite scenes, the last thing you see is Tony Montana face down in his little pond in front of his house, and the statue, "The World Is Yours," is right there. Zach, do you have a favorite scene?
Drama-wise, I'd probably say when he comes back to see his mother and sister, and just the utter disappointment that the mom has for him is just it's very powerful. And then I mean you gotta say the say hello to my little friend scene is always classic. And then probably the jacuzzi scene where he's just like he thinks everyone's against him, and by that point that you clearly know that he doesn't love his wife at all. It's just she's just there just for money and drugs essentially. So yeah, I'd say those couple scenes. What about you, Ed?
Definitely the say hello to my little friend scene. After that's just pure gold. I mean, honestly, that was just pure cinematic gold.
Addition.
Like back then, today, like that would have been very powerful. That right there, man. Oof. That's all I can say, man. Because I mean, when he goes ahead and comes up with that M4 with the grenade launcher, shit's about to go down. And I mean, no wrong. He just piled into the bowl and
the one-liners from the great Oliver Stone. Those are all favorites for me. When he's like, life is like one big pussy, you just gotta fuck it. That shit's funny. I'm sorry to say it, but it's funny coming out of Al Pacino's mouth.
Bro, we wouldn't have had as many good one-liners that 50 delivered without this movie. Like, legitly.
Anytime he's talking to Frank when he's trying to let the chemistry between him and Frank before everything goes down is fun. I like the scene where he's using the lemon water to eat. He's eating the lemon, drinking the fucking water. I think that's so detailed. Um, and if I had to pick one ultimate scene, it would be probably the scene where he comes to um, Michelle Pfeiffer's character before Tony dies, and he's like, I need that woman in order to be the next best thing. In order to go to the next level, I need that female. And his conversation with her at the pool is pretty deep, honestly. If you go back and watch it, talking about kids and talking about how he needs that kind of person in his life. But yeah, some favorite scenes from ours. Go back and check out the movie. It's on Netflix. The next time we join you audio wise will be next Wednesday, December 13th. We talk Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. It's the 20th anniversary of the movie that went 12 for 12, I believe, at the Oscars. Won Best Picture. We're also talking our top 5 favorite movies from 2003. But if you want to watch us talk about Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, we're going to be talking about it live this Sunday, December the 10th. We're talking Lord of the Rings. So if you want to watch it live, it's going to be on Sunday, December the 10th. For everybody out in podcast land, or if you listen to it on Spotify, Anchor, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, it'll be available next Wednesday, just like all of our other episodes are.
We're everywhere, damn it. You can't hide from us.
Can't hide from us. But yeah, let's give the movie a star rating. I don't know, I don't know how much of Ed's own supply he's on, but he'll go last. Ed'll go last. So, you know what? I was kind of on the fence of this movie. Where should it lie in between? I kind of knew that I was going to go maybe 8 or 9. But after watching it and seeing the detail that's in it and just appreciating all 2 hours and 50 minutes of it, I love fucking gangster movies. I'm going to give this movie a 10. I think Scarface is a classic. It holds up, at least for me, on this third watch that I've seen in 3 days. Who doesn't want to be Tony Montana? The performances, the writing, the score. It's a fun movie. And you know what? This 4K edition, the transfer was amazing. So I highly recommend it. Ed, what about you? What do you give it, Scarface?
I would go ahead and say a 9. Definitely a 9. This is up there with a lot of the big guys. It can play ball. So,
Zach,
I'm gonna go lower. Just it like I said, it's a film that I understand why people like it. Just in my personal opinion, it's not one that I gravitate towards. I do think there are a lot of good moments in this film. Obviously, it's surpassed the test of time since we're at 40 years this week. I'm going to give it a 7. Honestly, I feel like that is a low. I feel like that's a low grade, but just like I said, we talked.
IMDb has it at an 8.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, and
it's probably higher than what you were going to give it last week.
Yeah, before I watch it, it's probably going to be like a 6 or a 5, to be honest. So, like I said, it's one that I get it, but I don't get it. It's just one that I'd rather watch The Godfather or The Irishman or something else. So
still some great gangster movies.
So,
like I said, guys, next week we are on the way back to The Lord of the Rings.
Fantasyland.
The Return of the King next week. This is the 3rd straight year where we've done a Lord of the Rings movie based on its 20th anniversary. Zach, what are you most looking forward to see next week on next week's episode? You're mute, Zach.
Me now?
Yeah.
Honestly, just kind of finishing out the franchise. We got to do this the last
2 years, and it's been fun, really, really fun. I'm excited to see. Johnny, you weren't a fan of Two Towers, so I'm excited. I'm kind of interested to see what Return of the King's going to offer for you. I've watched both. We're just talking about the theatrical version. I'll talk about the extended here and there, just kind of give some context words and everything about what happens in between. But yeah, I'm excited to finish off the Lord of the Rings trilogy. What about you, Ed?
Honestly, it's a very good movie. It's a great ending to the trilogy, the original trilogy. It ties up a lot of good ends. It does a lot of good stuff for the characters. It's a great movie. Well deserved of most of its accolades. I mean, honestly, well deserved. So.
And then the week after that, guys, week 3 of December, we talk about Sound of Freedom. And then we finish the month and the year with our top 5 plus 5 Christmas movies of all time. But as far as next week goes, Return of the King, excited. It's a girthy watch. Zach, where can listeners or viewers watch Return of the King?
You can watch both versions of theatrical and extended if you're interested on the Max. So go max it up.
Max it up. Watch along with us. We talk about it next week. We also talk, since the great year 2003 was 20 years ago, we're also talking our top 5 2003 movies. All that is next week. So as far as Scarface goes, any final comments before we get out of here?
We could, but we probably get canceled. So we'll leave it at that.
All right, guys. Don't forget. Oh, Ed, you have something to say?
No, I said nah, man.
So next week, Return of the King, brand new episode. Don't forget, if you want to watch us talk about Return of the King, we'll see you this Sunday. For everybody who's wanting to listen to the podcast, next Wednesday, new episode right here of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast.
Bye.